want to look at this. This is a video from this is a clip from Jon Stewart's like the problem with Jon Stewart. It's his YouTube video, and it's a conversation with a few people. Mark Cuban is one of them. It's about Elon's Twitter reign with Mark Cuban, Maria Ressa, and Julia Ioffe. I guess I don't know how to say it. Sorry. But I like Jon Stewart a lot. You guys know that. And this whole thing that's going on with Twitter is very bizarre and very predictable, to be honest with you. When they rolled out Twitter Blue, where everybody could get verified, I'm sitting here and I'm like, this sounds like to me that Elon is trying to get a short-term financial gain by monetizing Twitter Blue, and then he will eventually implement something that will distinguish, that will basically be like an additional Twitter. And they did. They implemented Twitter Yellow for basically it's just verified. It's just what Twitter, the blue Twitter used to be. That's all it is. It's ridiculous, to be honest with you. And I saw it coming. I think most people did. I'm not like I'm an incredibly intelligent, handsome, sexy, beautiful, amazing guy. But like, frankly, it's predictable. And you should be a little apprehensive because the platform's never going to fall off or explode or die. Well, it's going to fall off. It's not going to die. But like, these things should scare you. I also saw a thing where Elon Musk said that he's going to make it incredibly restrictive for you to advertise other platforms on Twitter. So like things like Linktree, he explicitly said, we're going to get rid of this. And you can't link anymore. And then I think the quartering weighed in and said like, no, I need that. And Elon's like, that's fair. But it's still like weird that like how possessive they're being over the platform in a way that's like destructive for its creators. Like that Twitter, for a lot of people, is a platform that redirects people somewhere else. That's not a bad thing. Different people have a different relationship with the platform. It's not a horribly bad thing. But Elon is getting into too much of a greedy mode, right? So let's get this going,
guys.
Elon put up a poll if you should still be.
It's hard not to just start with the main news. Have all of you been suspended from Twitter? And should we just pool our money and buy it? And when I say pool our money, I mean, Mark, will you buy it?
I kind of figured. It's Elon's company. Elon gets to do what Elon.
I like Mark, by the way. He has some business. He has a business where he actually sells like relatively inexpensive medication to people online for like somewhat like a fraction of what it actually costs. And I I can respect the attempt to, be a good millionaire or billionaire or whatever he is, man. And try to, find a business that you can still make profitable, which there's nothing wrong with that, but not like an abusive profit margin where you could be like, I'm going to try to provide people with decent medications. So I like Mark Cuban.
Wants to do. He paid price for admission. Win, lose, or draw, we'll find out.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see it in this arbitrary, pernicious
You mean
state.
free speech absolutism? Is that what you mean, John?
I believe that's what I meant. By the way, he who controls the chalkboard controls the absolutism. Now, the person that I think has the most at stake here, if we're being honest, is Maria Ressa, who faces censorship and the penalty of imprisonment in the Philippines. And so it's very easy for us to sit here and watch glibly. But for Maria, I'm assuming this is a chilling bit of turn of events.
I think it's both chilling and instructional. It really shows you the basic question is, why does one rich man have that much power over the public sphere globally? And it has never happened this way in the past. And this platform in particular, because of its design, is global in scope. So and I think this is part of what we've been trying to point out, is that in the medium term, to just try to fix everything that is wrong, fix the information ecosystem, which means stop what social media has done, put guardrails on these. And what is happening on Twitter is a perfect example why you need this.
Well, that's it. So, Mark.
Okay, it's interesting because I'm listening and they're effectively talking about restricting freedom of speech. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But what they're actually talking about is the fact that it's freedom of speech. Well, first of all, Twitter is a public landscape platform, right? So it's basically like a town square. I think that's the way to look at it. But it's one of those things where it's like, how far do you go with free speech? Only in the sense, like, obviously you should be able to say whatever you want, but when it comes to Twitter, because, if you actively lie about something in a way that's incredibly harmful, destructive, or if you use that platform to call, for instance, some kind of a coup, right, to say that the presidential campaign is illegitimate, despite the fact that there's literally no proof of that. You can get into very dangerous territory of inciting people to violence, And so, that's the conversation is and I think it's a conversation we need to have, but it's also a scary conversation because, how much do you regulate? You know, how much can you regulate? You know, and it seems like Elon Musk may not be trying to do that, except when it comes to getting people to not go to other websites. So you know, it's okay to regulate it when it comes to financially. It's okay to regulate, but it's not okay to regulate when it comes to a moral perspective, I suppose.
You know this cat, Mark. You know Elon. You're excited to see him take it over because you thought he could use. But it's pretty clear that there's a fine line between being a disruptor and being the king. Utterly narcissistic anarchist, sanctimonious nutbag.
Dictator.
What the fuck happened?
It's Rupert Murdoch on a different platform. You know, it's always been this way. It's not something new. It's always been this way. Walter Cronkite decided what went on his show. You know, Rupert Murdoch has been for corporate advocacy since Rupert Murdoch was born. You know,
right.
It's just a different platform. And so we're starting to understand. And look, and even with the Twitter files, with, you know, even though there was no there, we got insight into how Twitter worked in their decision-making process. And while they tried to stick to their terms of service, there's always going to be a gray area where decisions are made about information. And so we're just getting, you know, in this particular case, the guy making the sausage is showing his recipe, even though he's saying he's making cupcakes. He's making hot dogs, right? And we're getting to see how they're made.
Mark, have you had breakfast yet? Because it seems to me that a lot of these food analogies may be based on you.
Right here.
There you go, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
My list is healthy cookies.
Oh, that's delightful. Julia, as a journalist, you've also got to be thinking to yourself, well, if I don't know where the mines are buried, I don't know where not to step. And my entire job is based on not treading lightly, but walking into this. The problem is, you know, he made a big deal of Twitter files showing the corruption within the decision-making process of moderating this free speech town square platform. I would bet you a Twitter files from the last 24 hours would be a tiny release, because it would just be, Elon, what should we do? Answer, fuck these guys, get them all done. He just...
Okay, so this is in reference to Twitter files. I'm not super educated on the Twitter files. My understanding is Elon released a bunch of shit. I'll do like a quick rundown on what the Twitter files is. You know, this is CBS, which is more reputable than fucking CNN, which is Fox for sure. The so-called Twitter files are a brainchild of Twitter's own owner, Elon Musk, who has said that he wants to show what really happened behind the scenes regarding content moderation decisions of the social media company before he bought it in October. Okay, so generally speaking, there's probably two aspects to why there was so much like moderated content on their social media. One aspect is because like it's easy to moderate in like the more progressive way. You know, I know like, you know, conservative, it's easy to like dunk on like conservatives. Like that's what the status quo says right now. But there's another aspect of it is some of the censorship came from like horrible COVID misinformation and presidential misinformation and disinformation, a lot of which was run by, you know, Russia, at least for, well, that was like way back in 2016, you know, which is a fact that Russia ran interference for Trump. I'm not saying Trump was part of it, but very clearly, at the very least, Russia wanted to disrupt the American political system. And so now people are using like harmful, like, you know, like Trump is using his platform or used it to incite like January 6th. Like that's obviously very dangerous. And so like those are the two different aspects that are kind of merging together, and it forces us to have a conversation. Like, what the fuck do we do? Like, how much do we censor? Like, how much is it, how is it irresponsible to allow people to call for acts of violence in some capacity? You know, Twitter files have been released dribs and drabs throughout December through journalists. Okay. Delving into the internal documents and discussing the highlights of the company's decision-making process around some high-profile actions, such as banning former President Donald Trump. That one's pretty clear. Under Musk, who has said that he wants Twitter to be a mecca for free speech, the company has reinstated some previously banned accounts, such as those belonging to Trump and far right-wing Mayor Taylor Greene, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West. What? Was reinstated, but then banned again less than 2 weeks later. Okay. Musk has been critical of prior management's content moderation decisions, arguing that they engaged in censorship. So the Twitter files consist of thousands of internal documents, including many Slack discussions between Twitter employees about their content moderation. Okay, so when I say Slack discussions, I'm assuming that they're very unofficial statements about some of their content moderation, which can be difficult to... So I'm going to assume that they're not great. I think we all have Slack conversations when we're not speaking in an official capacity about things. We tend to spice it up a little bit when we actually talk about stuff in a more serious capacity, you know? So I understand that. Okay. So far, we have 5 releases from Twitter. I can see why people get frustrated with that, though. We have each focusing on different facets of Twitter. Okay. Twitter Files Part 1 focused on the company's decisions surrounding news about material found on what is alleged to be Hunter Biden's laptop. Okay. 2 highlights how Twitter used tools to lower the visibility of something else. So there's like a conspiracy that like Hunter Biden is engaged in some kind of like, you know, there's this whole crazy thing going on where like his dad got him a job and blah blah blah. What's more likely is Hunter Biden has a drug problem, and it's really unfortunate. And because the name Biden is his last name, he was easy to get some kind of bullshit consultation job. It's very like par for the course normal shit. I think that's where that comes in. 2, highlights how Twitter use tools to lower the visibility of some accounts. They probably do. Most likely conservative accounts that are speaking of what you would consider like hate speech in some capacity. And again, I can see why people are apprehensive about it, but yeah, and they might have gone too far. I can see why people are apprehensive about that. 3, centers on Twitter's decision to remove Trump from the plot. That's just like very explicitly clear. I mean, he incited a riot on January 6th. 4, adds details about Twitter's removal of Trump. Okay, that's what I would say is part 3. 5, provides more information about Twitter's decision to ban Trump. Okay, so all 3 of these are just like, okay, I mean, like realistically speaking, January 6th was bad. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Okay, so I can see where people are coming from.
Shut down Twitter Spaces because one of those journalists confronted him on the fact that he didn't dox Elon. He was just reporting on it. So Julia, what
happened?
Because it would just be, Elon, what should we do? Answer, fuck these guys, get them all done. He just shut down Twitter Spaces because one of those journalists confronted him on the fact that he didn't dox Elon. He was just reporting on it. So Julia,
interesting.
Forget about guardrails. Where's the map? What's the rule of the road here?
Well, I do think it's interesting that these self-declared free speech absolutists are absolute in protecting their own speech, right? It's free speech for them, but for really nobody else, especially if it's speech criticizing them, then that's really, really out of bounds. Look, I think that Twitter has always been a fraught space for journalists. And I imagine that there are a lot of editors that are watching this with some relief. And then they're like, oh, good. Just blow this thing up.
Give me this bitch.
And let's just not have any journalists on Twitter, because Twitter has given so many editors, so many of our bosses such, spilkus in the Genectigazoink because
Wow. Let me just stop you right there. What a beautiful tribute to Hanukkah coming up was
God. I thought my grandparents just jumped on and said something.
There is a punim that is smiling.
That is very Shanum.
There you go.
It's Linda Richmond. Anyway,
but you bring up a great point.
Right, because they were always freaking out that we were saying things that would compromise our objectivity or that would get us in trouble, and I've gotten in trouble on there a fair amount of times. And there was so much hand wringing in editorial that I think the public didn't see. And I think there are a lot of editors that are just hoping that this thing just blows up. And this way it'll look like it's not that the editors are kind of turning the screws on their journalists, which they've been doing for years, by the way, including at publications like The Atlantic, The Washington Post, The New York Times. But that it'll look like big bad Elon Musk has come out and shut down Twitter for journalists. And they were trying to protect free speech.
Well, let's go. Let's flip it on its head. You could also say that journalists and editors and publications are just upset that they've lost the gatekeeping powers that had formerly been invested in them, and that they had wielded that authority perniciously and in a partisan way. And so this is the revenge of the free speech libertarians. But on the flip side of that, couldn't you make a case that Twitter blowing up is a good thing for journalists because they're so wedded to its circadian rhythm as though it's news, that journalists have turned this space into reality when in fact Twitter is not reality?
Well, I think it emerged. I think it became
that was a little crazy for me. What the fuck did he? Okay. All right.
Really important platform because of journalists, because of people who acted like they were journalists. It was a kind of
I think that's kind of like the new age media problem, right? Is that there are a lot of journalists who aren't qualified to be journalists speaking on things, but then at the same time, there are a lot of qualified journalists who are sensationalizing things for views, and then some people turn to like the not qualified journalists, people who don't have like traditional like degrees and whatnot. The reality is a lot of these problems that we've had when it comes to like censorship of journalism, I think comes down to an apprehensiveness to trust journalists, because it doesn't matter what side you're on. There's massive sensationalization from everybody. Like, let's talk about, I brought it up lightly before, but Russia collusion, right? Didn't happen. Just letting you know, okay? Now, did Trump benefit from Russia's massive, objectively true disinformation campaigns? Yeah. There were Russian bots that were signal boosting. They would make accounts that would come up with news about something going on, and then there were bots that would display that news as real people. pushing boom, 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 boom back all over the place. And a lot of it was, there was some stuff that was like pro BLM as well. I think a lot of it was just trying to fucking rile up American tensions. But what happened is that we did an investigation, which I think was necessary. And the investigation was fair. And it came out that Trump did not collude. But what were we saying for 2 years? Or what was the media saying for 2 years? Every fucking day. Russian collusion, Russian collusion, Russian collusion, Russian collusion, boom, 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 every single day, lying and sensationalizing. And then when the results came in, there was like, they're on TV like, trying to interpret it the worst that they could. And it was like a fucking brain bumblefuck, you know? And if I'm going to be charitable to Donald Trump, you know, and I will be, to be consistent, because if you think about it, Donald Trump was called a cheater over and over again, even though he did not collude with Russia. And then after that, it prompted him to say some very sussy things, like we need to censor media, which is not good. You shouldn't have a president doing that. But he's being called a cheater every single day. He's being called a cheater every single day. And then he flips out and he goes goblin mode. And I don't think it's right, but at the end of the day, you can see where he's coming from, no? Right? It's still dangerous when he says that he wants to censor media. But if you think about it, Donald Trump is just Nadia. And that's probably what led him to go fucking ballistic, because every single day he's hearing something that's just not true. It's simply untrue. Right? You know? Destiny would hate your comparison because he always debates people that says Democrats do the same things as Republicans now. I'm sure that fucking Republicans are worse than Democrats overall. But I can still see from a human perspective why Trump fucking lost his marbles. You know what I mean? What do you want me to tell you?
Newsfeed and a bespoke newsfeed for a lot of people.
Crowdsourced.
Only for journalists.
Yeah,
only for journalists, right? Because you know, John, I don't necessarily agree that this is good for journalists. In one respect, it's good because everybody wants to hate the king and they get to do it in their own way, right? So everybody unifies in that perspective. But the other side of the coin is everything is long tail. You know, the beauty of Twitter is you're able to accumulate followers, right? It's not algorithmically driven.
Yes, and build a brand on there.
Yeah, and you're able to define your brand. It's not like TikTok where it's all algorithmic and followers don't really have an impact. It's very much
true. Fuck TikTok.
Chronological, and it's very much follower driven, where you know everybody in the early days of Twitter, when it evolved from being a social medium, hey, what are you doing at South by Southwest tonight, to hey, let's get my news or let me promote something. Now it's very different, and it's very brand driven.
I think it actually created a lot of journalists and opened and kind of leveled the playing field and allowed a lot of people into the profession, not just of journalism but comedy, other kinds of storytelling that wouldn't have made it into these traditionally very elite spaces that are very.
Why do I think it's worse what the Republicans are doing? I actually happened to watch a good chunk of the conversation Destiny was having with a couple of conservatives. I think last night. And he brought up some really interesting points about, and I looked into it, he brought up some interesting points about how the Republican Party, the majority of the party is more radical of a party, that they, like a 61% believe that the election was rigged in some capacity, like, which is insane. It's just insane, right? Thankfully, I don't know any of those conservatives. Right? And that, their censorship has been worse than Democrats in some capacity. I don't know if I fully agree, but it was very interesting, and it definitely kind of shows you that, there's more going on than a lot of people think when they don't actively follow that stuff. So that's why I would say go watch the Destiny video. It was very informative. I'll just pull it up on the screen. Hopefully I remember to link it into my penis and my balls into the chat. But I watched a bit of it, this conversation here. I tried watching it while I was doing Mythic Plus. Really interesting stuff. I probably should watch more of it, but I had to do my Mythic. I did like a plus 11 yesterday, you know what I mean? So
very hard to break into. That's one. And then back to your original question, to turn it back on its head again, Elon bought this platform in part because conservatives were saying, us being shadow banned on Twitter, us being demoted on Twitter is a violation of our First Amendment rights. And liberals, ironically, were saying, well, this is a private company. They can do whatever they want. And they were saying,
no, too much credit. Yeah, I think you're giving Elon too much credit.
Well, but so hold on, but no, but whether that was his thought process or not, but now that he owns it,
I want to be explicitly clear. Okay, I feel that there's probably a lot of conservatives that are frustrated with their inability to say some things on the internet, and I understand that. I just want you guys to know, I don't think Elon gives a fuck about you. I don't think Elon cares about you at all. I don't think that anything Elon says about Trump or any of this shit is genuine in any capacity. I think it's a fucking grift. Just so that because he knows that there's like a very strong, passionate, frustrated, and upset base of conservatives, and I think that there's some good reason for that are crying out and be like, oh, we're getting fucked. We feel like there's some unfair stuff, and we feel like there's no transparency on what's going on. And I don't think Elon cares about you at all. I think that he's just playing the fuck out of people, and people are like, oh my god, Daddy Elon. Like I've seen the way people like I watched a little bit of the quartering talk about Elon Musk. If I would never simp for a man that hard. It's pathetic. I'm not trying to be rude. But they act like he's a fucking messiah. Kind of the same way people act about Trump, which is bizarre to me. Like I've seen, like that's one of the things. Like I've seen people, like I don't think I've ever seen anybody. People act like there's more people that act like Donald Trump is the fucking messiah of the world than people did it with with fucking Barack Obama. It's fucking crazy. Like it's hysterical to me, you know. So.
Now conservatives are saying, well, now it's a private company. He can do whatever he wants. And it's not a First Amendment right? So now it turns out, again, they're not free speech. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, like everything else, it becomes a tit for tat ownership over libs or conservatives. But my point is more this. Okay. Isn't it a problem if journalists view the ranking of trends on Twitter? Aren't you outsourcing your editorial authority by and I do think journalists have done this and newsrooms have done this. They scan Twitter and they look at the trend. And they look at how it's ranked and they decide, oh, that's the top story. That's the most important thing going on in the world right now. That's the urgency. And you see how it influences coverage.
He's actually got a really good fucking point. Absolutely. That's true for everything, whether it's like doing silly bullshit commentary videos versus, actual news. And when it comes to bullshit commentary videos, who really cares, right? Because, again, they're just stupid commentary videos. When it comes to like the news, all you're seeing is the most sensationalized stuff. There's people like we watched the other day. I thought was really an important video. It was a little while back. It was about TikTok and how like there's Syrian refugees who are really the only thing that they like. Okay, they're Syrian refugees and basically they're fucked. They're oppressed and. What happens is that they go on live streams to try to beg for money. And people like make fun of them on TikTok, but I understand the struggle because they're fucking refugees. They don't do anything else. So there's like, there's somebody that'll go and they'll rent the phone out to them and they'll go blah, 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 blah. TikTok takes like 70% of the donations, which is just in general is fucking crazy to me. Like even for like our own live streams that we would do. And it's like, wow. That feels like something we should call out, you know? And maybe it's not as important as people think, but I certainly think it's more important than a lot of other things that nobody cares. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot more important shit going on, and we just don't give a fuck about the actual important stuff. You know what I mean? That's how it feels. That's how it feels, brother. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's more than that, right? Like, so I would disagree with something Mark said, that it isn't just Elon kind of, being the owner and the gatekeeper of this. These are his rules, so he exercises the power media used to exercise. We never could exercise this kind of power because the power of technology is significantly different from traditional media where we all saw the same thing, where we weren't cloned as, where data privacy is thrown out the door and algorithms of amplification determine actually on
You stole your parents' MAGA hat after the election and they never figured it out. Damn. There's a MAGA store like somewhat close to me. You think I should go and buy a bunch of stuff?
In particular, lies spread at least 6 times faster than really boring facts. So from the very beginning,
wait, that's been quantified at 6 times, Maria?
This is an MIT study from.
Wait, what is it?
Because the power of technology is significantly different from traditional media where we all saw the same thing, where we weren't cloned as, where data privacy is thrown out the door and algorithms of amplification determine actually on Twitter in particular, lies spread at least 6 times faster than really boring facts. So from the very beginning,
wait, that's been quantified at 6 times, Maria?
Really? Wow. That's fucking nuts. Okay.
This is an MIT study from 2018. Lies spread at least 6 times faster than facts on social media. And then you add on top of that, it is the kind of weaknesses of it, the way it was set up to basically keep you scrolling, right? Because that's the end goal of this.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's one of those things where it's the beast itself is just no morality. There's no deep-seated conspiracy that's set into place to cause us all to hate each other more. But that's what's happening because hatred is very where the fuck did the thing go? There was literally a fucking campaign that's supposed to be here. Whatever. Hatred is very intoxicating, and people love to hate each other. It keeps you engaged. It gives you like a purpose. It feeds into your like internal animalistic, hateful fucking desires. And that's what it is. That's what people get hit. Wow, words. That's what gets clicks and views. And so like that's what people are seeing.
Keep you scrolling.
Sure,
the
it's
platform makes
monetized
money.
by engagement and the amount of time you spend on it. That's how they make the
And
money.
it has actually gotten rid of, it has atomized meaning and
Wait,
flattened what engagement even means. But because it just wants to make money out of us, it has come in, used our biology against us, insidiously manipulated our emotion, and a system of advertising and marketing that was once advertising and marketing has now been used for political power and geopolitical power. So this is insidious manipulation, and this is now a behavior modification system, and we're Pavlov's dogs. And where is this okay?
I mean, I agree. I always enjoy watching Jon Stewart, and this very intelligent conversation. And it's not sensationalized stuff. Like they did talk about Elon Musk, which is like somewhat of a trendy topic, but they also talked about the incredible dangers of Twitter in a way that's not pandering to either side. It's more just like, here are the facts of the situation. It's nice to hear people not debate everything in such a toxic, dumb fucking way. So I can always appreciate stuff like that.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.